Hi guys, welcome back to our Porsche restoration project. Today we're going to put together our brake line system. We're going to install our foot pedals, also install the master cylinder, brake light switch, and all the various retainer clips and connections associated with it. Some of this we'll be able to install now. Some of it will have to wait until a little bit later down the road when we actually get our brake calipers in place. So what I've got here is a basic replacement system. These come as a kit. They're a numbered kit, so in the diagram of that kit it'll tell you which line goes with which piece, and so I'm just basically bending these into shape by hand. You can use a brake bending tool. I haven't used one for this. I haven't found a need for it yet. Bends are very subtle and very easy to do. You can use a crescent wrench, just grab the end of that nut and just gently bend, and then also the rest you can kind of massage by hand. So basically getting it into shape, not trying to get too perfect until we actually land them, and might need to massage them just a little bit more. Also, we've got replacement brake lines by Ate. These are our flex lines. Here's our originals over here. Brake pedals, these are ready to go in. All I need to do here, if you've seen our earlier video on how to rebuild this, I was just waiting on a replacement drift pin from Porsche, as I felt the drift pin that came with the replacement kit was a little bit too big. So Porsche drift pin looks like it's going to fit just right, about 1.5 millimeters smaller on diameter. So we're going to set that guy in there and then get these guys ready to go. Also, I've got a couple of diagrams printed up here showing the brake line configuration of this model. This is 67. This particular page is a copy out of the manual. See, it's just real basic system there. And then also I printed this up online. This is in the green there. I've got highlighted is the rear brake hard lines, yellow being your flex, orange is our main line. It's already run through the tunnel, and then our front brake system. So this basically shows us exactly how everything's going to clip together. So let's just finish drifting this guy in first, and then just finishing off there so we have basically equal reveal, top and bottom. That one slid right in, no problem. A little bit of soap on there. If I tried to force my bigger one through there, what could happen? I could end up cracking this clutch lever arm, and then yeah, quite expensive to replace that. Then the last thing I'm going to do to these pedals before I install them on the car, I'm going to take some of this black seam sealer by Sim. I'm going to put just a real thin slurry coat on the bottom side of this housing. Let it dry overnight before we bolt it down to the pan. And basically what that's going to do, that's going to create like an anti-vibration membrane between our foot pedals and the pan. So let's go ahead and do that, see what that looks like. Just enough build on there just so it has some kind of a rubberized membrane. This is something you don't have to do, just something I do. Just make it a little bit smoother, a little bit nicer to drive. Alright, just a thin membrane on there. So while that's setting up, let's go ahead and start installing our rear brake lines. Okay, what we're looking at, we've got the car rolled over on its side. So here's our main line coming out of the tunnel. This is going up to the junction block mounted on the upper frame right member there. And then we're taking our flex line, a little bit of red rubber grease, blow out all our lines with an air hose before we install them, just to make sure we don't have any debris in there from the manufacturing process, any dirt. So for now I'm just going to snug everything down, then I'll go back and tighten it. That one's going to locate there, and then our crossover is going to snake behind this area and come in. So let's put that one in next. Okay, just kind of got that massaged into place. Put a little red rubber grease on there. Threads only. Nothing down in this area here. I'll just help torque it down without getting any kind of galding on our two metal surfaces. So you'll feel it kind of bottom out. Once it bottoms, just a little bit extra torque on there, and then stop. If you over tighten these, you can strip the threads and crack these. Yeah, over tightening is not going to help at all. So here's our left side. This one works a little bit different than the other side. So what we've got is this, this is basically a tensioner. Just going to slide over here and back up against this guy. We've got our connector. It's got a short end and a long end. The long end will go through the hole and thread down on this guy. And what that, you can see that tensioner now is pushing against the backing plate here, and that's what keeps it tight. And then our left flex line, that's going to thread into here. So let me go ahead and torque all this down with some wrenches. Then we're going to roll the car back over in upright position. That way you can see exactly what's going on. Makes more sense. Okay, we're back upright again. So now we can take a close-up look and see what's going on in the right position. So you can see our rear main line coming out, going into the bottom of our junction block. Soft flex line coming out of the back end there. And then crossover line to our left side. And then ingenious little tensioner system they came up with. Important thing to remember on this one is that the long side of the coupling goes into the tensioner side of this flange and it comes out. The rest of this we'll have to hook up once we have our suspension in place, but that's pretty much going to do it for now. Let's go ahead and get our foot pedals going. So what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of preparing the area to receive the foot pedals. So I'm just looking it over real good, making sure all my wiring's fastened off, everything's connected, finishing up some behind the pedals and close in tight to the pedals, sound deadening. I used some leftover material I had from the roof. Works out real good for that. Good way to get those shapes. You can press some aluminum foil in there, make a pattern for you, then you can cut the pieces from that pattern. They fit right in there. Okay, let's go get those foot pedals and bolt them down. Okay, so that just drops down in there. So we got our bolts coming through the bottom side there, so we'll nut those down. Put some fresh new nylocks on there. And then on the other side is where our master cylinder bolts up. Okay, so she's nutted down. What we want to do now before we get too far, let's go ahead and hook up the clutch cable with the cleveson pin. That's pretty much how it's going to go, and you're going to want to do that first before you do your accelerator because it'll get in the way. So you can see the position of that lock as it clamps down. So I'm just going to push that down and then we'll snap on the accelerator. Okay, got our cleveson pin in location on our clutch pedal, and then got our ball cup snapped onto our accelerator linkage here. Both of those guys, little petroleum grease in those areas just to keep them lubricated. And then as far as tightening down this assembly, I think what I'm going to do is just leave it sort of loose here. You can see we got some play in there. See that there. So I'm going to give it full down force from the other side when we clamp our master cylinder on there. And once that's tight, I'll come back here and set these. So I've got the car rolled back on its side here. I want to show you what's going on inside the tunnel with the two cables. A couple things to look out for. So got some rags propped behind the clutch pedal to bring that forward. If I don't have that forward, what happens, it puts a bend in the cable. Let's go inside the tunnel here and see what's going on. So relaxed, resting, functioning position, the clutch cable will be on the bottom and the accelerator cable will be on the top. It is possible to wrap these two around each other about midway through the tunnel here. As the clutch line comes out of the sleeve there, it can wrap around the accelerator cable about midway here. So you want to make sure those two are completely free of each other and not rubbing. Then once we get up here, plenty of room so we can see now accelerator working properly, not rubbing anything. Everything's tight, but it does clear. And then our clutch cable. You can see how that's working now. If I pull those rags out of there, here's what happens. You see a bit of a bend in there in that line, so it gets confusing. So anyhow, just something to look out for there. Okay, let's just take a quick look at a mock-up here before we install this on the car. So here's our master cylinder. Coming off the right side, we got a banjo connection, two copper washers, connector, and our brake light switch, also a copper washer in between there. Then we have our fluid reservoir. That guy is just basically going to press down into this top seal here. Coming off from the rear, we're going to have a lever coming off our brake pedal. It's going to press into that area. We'll put a little grease on that. and then left hard line coming out. That's going to hook up to our fender right at this junction here, and then flex line to the wheel. And our right side, we've got this junction here, this center area. This is going to hook up to the main line coming out of the tunnel, and then our right hard line to the fender. That's going to junction right there, and then right flex. Then we got a few parts over here. These guys we can't put on right now until we get our calipers in place, rest of our suspension in place. But for now, we can do most of it. Okay, let's take this guy outside, put her on. Okay, general purpose grease right on the tip of this guy here. And also I've got some grease down inside. See in there, right down in that pocket. That's going to be general purpose grease. And then a little red rubber grease on the outside of this rubber area. So full downward pressure on our pedals. Okay, next we're going to put the fluid reservoir in. A couple of things to look out for here. So on the top of this fluid reservoir, we've got a dimple, and what's going to happen, that's going to sit down right in this embossed area here of the clamp. That's going to be like a locating pin. Then once that's in position, we got to make sure that our hold down clamp for our line is going to be in right position to be able to get that off if we have to from the top side, because once this is all put together from the bottom side, we'll never be able to get at it again. So I want to make sure it's not upside down. So that'd be the right position right there. Okay, and then just a little tiny bit of rubber grease just to help slide it in the boot there. Just ever so slight. Okay. Okay, that feels seated. Just kind of bottoms out. And that's it. Okay, position of that screw there, you can see if you have to, you can get it from the top side. Not going to be any fun, but doable. And then the other one up here, see if we can get it to the top side. And then plugging in our brake light switch. So these can go on either terminal, doesn't matter. So slide our boot on. And then tapping our retainer clip in place. Okay, just finishing up here. Let's take a close-up look, see how we did. The most important thing of this entire area is that you double check and triple check all your connections. Make sure everything is tightened down just the right amount. If you have a loose connection here, or you've over-tightened something here, after the car is put together and back on the ground, it's going to be really painful to get back in this area and try and resolve it. So just double check all your connections and you should be good. I'm going to stick a couple pictures in here what this area looked like when I took the car apart. Then let's go to the back and see what that looks like. And then just one more look at our backside here. So you see starting to get busy back here now, all these lines coming out of the tunnel. So our main line coming into our junction. Crosses over off to the left side there and out. Fairly simple system put together, not too bad. Main thing to look out for here is just make sure all your connections are tightened down just the right amount. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.